What does matter is how the world views America. From the outside looking in, we are becoming more of a laughingstock by the hour. It makes you wonder how our allies, or more crucially, our enemies, can possibly take this administration seriously. And if the other world leaders aren't laughing, they might be crying or screaming, worried about what another America First Trump presidency could bring. Last year, before Trump was reelected, Jackie Combs with the Los Angeles Times wrote, quote, "They don't respect Trump at all, though they do fear him, the way you'd fear a madman at a nuclear button." President Nixon sought leverage by making foreign counterparts think he was unstable. Trump actually is unstable. Foreign diplomats and some leaders don't even mask their anxiety, end quote. As a trusted global partner, all you have is your reputation, and it starts right at the top. Joining me now, Ravi Agarwal, editor-in-chief of Foreign Policy and the host of FP Live, and Mehdi Hasan, an award-winning journalist and CEO and editor-in-chief of Zeteo. Gentlemen, good to see you both this morning. Mehdi, let's start about this. I don't know what's a bigger concern, the fear that our allies have, including Canada and Mexico now, where we started a trade war, or the danger that our enemies see us as weak and disorderly and disorganized.
Not just our enemies, Ali, and that's the problem. Good morning to you, by the way. It's not just our enemies, right? If it was just our enemies, it would be like, okay, who cares about your enemies and your adversaries? Play your madman strategy. It's the idea of jeopardizing alliances, right? The U.S. is its alliances. The U.S. abroad, the strength of it comes from its reputation, from its ability to persuade and get other people to come along with it. Picking fights with your allies. I mean, I was the guy, Ali, as you know, who was warning about, look, Trump is not a dove. If he comes back into office, we're at risk of greater conflict. Are they going to have a war with Iran? He's put a bunch of hawks in his cabinet like Hegseth and Rubio. I didn't know I'd be the guy going on television like I am now saying, hey, I'm worried about a war with Denmark. I'm worried about a war with Panama. I'm worried about a war with Canada. I mean, the EU, you think I'm joking, the EU military chief, just for your viewers to be aware of this, the European Union's military chief said about a week ago, maybe we should put EU troops on Greenland. For the Russians? No, for us, for the Americans. That's insane, right? And you said allies. Canada sacrificed 165 people in Afghanistan to fight alongside the US after 9/11. You're picking fights with Canada and Mexico. This is a great moment for China, the country that Trump thinks is the big enemy and he's going to crack down. If I'm the Chinese, I'm loving this moment. I'm calling up the Colombians, where he just picked a 24-hour trade war. I'm calling up all these countries in Latin America and Asia and Africa and saying, can you really trust the United States?
Yeah, no, and this is an important point to get to, Ravi, because there is opportunity for other people. If you always thought America was the solid ally, if you didn't doubt that your treaty, I mean, the USMCA, the treaty between Canada, Mexico, and Canada, followed NAFTA, which followed the free trade agreement between Canada and the US, which followed the Auto Pact. This is decades in the making. Hard-won allies and alliances and trade negotiations. If that's not worth the paper it's written on, what exactly is?
I mean, this is not a new world order. This is a new world disorder. Trump is basically blowing up the last 80 years of the rules-based international system. You can argue that much of it wasn't working for a lot of countries, but this response to absolutely tear it apart is a whole other deal. I mean, Mehdi just referred to American allies, the likes of Canada, Mexico, Colombia, all of the EU. They really must be thinking now, with a friend like America, who needs enemies? And, it's worth remembering the only time NATO's Article 5 has been invoked was to defend the United States after 9/11. But if you think of the world as divided into camps, you've got the allies, you've got the disruptors, for example, Russia, Iran, North Korea. I mean, they're looking at this moment and saying Trump is doing exactly what we need him to do. He's disrupting the very system that made America strong. But there are two other camps I'd like to mention very quickly. There's the opportunists, referred to that, India, Saudi Arabia, many countries in the global south. They see a lot of opportunities that they can cherry pick in a quid pro quo world. Ali, the thing I worry about the most is this fourth category of countries, smaller countries. If you're Sri Lanka, Somalia, Chad, good luck. I mean, the old system worked, flawed as it was, because it was a rising tide that tried to lift all boats. If you blow up that system, which is what trade and globalization and supply chains all over the world are built around, the biggest losers are the smallest countries. And it really seems that America First doesn't care about that.
This is an interesting point, Mehdi, because I think Ravi points out there are a lot of things about the 80-year-old world order that we're in that were not perfect, that didn't work, that were not entirely fair, and worthy of discussion and some degree of disruption. But that doesn't feel like what Donald Trump's doing. Donald Trump doesn't feel like I'm coming in to be a reformer, to actually improve on some of these things that are broken. It feels like it's really just breaking the China itself. And part of this is our position on foreign aid that seems to be, I don't even know what it is right now. Some foreign aid seems to be frozen. There's some websites that are not working. I don't even know where we are in the world of foreign aid at the moment.
So, Ali, a couple of things. One is, on the burn it down, you're 100% right. And that applies at home and abroad, right? There are people who voted for Trump at home because they legitimately did not like the system in Washington, D.C. They thought we have a corrupt political order. He'll burn it down. As you say, though, he's not a builder. He's a guy who just continues the chaos. Same abroad. A lot of us were very unhappy with the Biden administration's Middle East policies. I just came back from the Gulf, where they all think Trump is going to be better than Biden because Biden was so bad on Palestine and the rules-based order. But, of course, we know he won't be better. He's actually saying, let's clean out Gaza. He wants to make things worse. He does destroy things, not build things, despite pretending to be a builder. On the aid front, I'm so glad you raised that, Ali. I hope the viewers at home understand what is going on right now. We are in a massive, massive crisis, humanitarian crisis, which Trump has inflicted, a man-made crisis. He just flicked a switch and said no more aid overnight. And overnight, Ali, in places like Sudan, soup kitchen shut down. In Ukraine, people lost fuel and electricity. In Thailand, they turned away Myanmar war refugees from hospitals. In Cambodia, they shut down an anti-malarial program. People are talking about, ProPublica did a very good investigation pointing out that around 130,000 children in Africa may now be at risk of HIV, being born with HIV because their mothers have been cut off from HIV drugs under George W. Bush's PEPFAR program. That's all being shuttered by Marco Rubio and Donald Trump. It should be one of the biggest stories in America, if not the world. People are going to die because of what Donald Trump and Musk and Rubio have been doing in recent weeks. And also, if you don't have any moral concerns for these people dying, again, to go back to Ravi's point, your point, what does it say for America's reputation in the world? One of the few good things we had on the international stage was our foreign aid program.
In fact, I heard from a Canadian official, Ravi, who said, if this moves forward, whatever happens, whatever comes of what looks like a renegotiation of our trade agreements with Mexico and Canada, whether you think it'll be better or worse, it has done such irreparable damage to some of the deepest relationships that the world understood existed. Maddie makes the point. Canadians, when America goes to war, Canadians go to war with them to help. This has done irreparable damage that may be generational.
Absolutely. I mean, look, and it was one thing in the first term where, many could argue this is a blip. America will sort of somehow correct itself. But this time it really doesn't feel that way. I mean, other leaders around the world, they really get the sense that this is the new American normal. This is what American people want again. And there's a sense that there's a sort of drunkenness over hard power and the way in which it can be wielded and used and deployed around the world, maybe in the short term to help American interests or however you define American interests. But what about soft power? And I think to throw the baby out with the bathwater in terms of whether it's aid, in terms of whether it's, America's human rights record, flawed as it is, we can all agree with that, but at least the intention was often to try and do better. The rhetoric around democracy promotion, again, incredibly flawed as it was, misused in many ways. Think of the Iraq War. But again, aspiring to do something better. When you throw all of that away, it really raises the question, what do you stand for other than an exertion of hard power? And then look at it this way. If you ever are in trouble, who stands up for you? What rules still remain and exist?